This enormous tank next to me is the King Tiger tank, the Tiger II, Königstiger, sometimes called for the Allies, sometimes the Royal Tiger. And as you can see, it is an enormous beast. For many people, they consider this the ultimate development of German tanks in World War II. Now the Tiger, we've already discussed the Tiger program with our Tiger I tank chat. With the Tiger II, what we're looking at here is a vehicle that obviously comes after the Tiger I, but it's done with a desire from Hitler, and a desire of Hitler's is really an order that has to be carried out. His desire in early 1943 is to see the massive L-71 Rheinmetall gun, it's an 88mm gun, put onto a tank. And what happens about that is that he goes, as ever, to the Panzer Commission. There's discussions about this. They go out and they look at the two companies that have built the Tiger I and ask them if they can find a way of putting this new 88mm gun onto a Tiger chassis of some sort. So it's all part of this, what's called overall the Tiger program in the German military. So Porsche and Henschel are the two people who competed for the Tiger I. They compete again, in essence, for the Tiger II. Initially, Porsche's design, he's coming up with the same petrol-electric drive that he's been thinking about for his early submission for the Tiger I, that then goes into the Elephant vehicle. He thinks that's a way to go. He looks at that, he puts out a prototype. He actually does two variations of prototypes, VK4502 brackets P, that means basically the Porsche variant. Now those vehicles are demonstrated in October of 1943. The prototypes of design work is shown to Hitler then. At the same time in the background, Henschel are looking at their designs. First of all, they suggest, why don't we just add some extra armour on the front of the Tiger I? Will that help do? That's not good enough. That won't actually meet the bill. So Porsche's design, it's exhibited. He has two variants of it, one with the turret at the front of the vehicle, one with the turret at the rear of the vehicle. One of the versions has the engine in the middle, one of the versions has the engine in the rear. So different ways of putting the combination of his petrol-electric drive together. The Henschel version, after they've suggested this initial extra bit of armour, they then come up with the idea of stretching the Tiger I hull. They used an angle front. They actually put the armour plate at about 50-degree angle, and they actually angle the rear in a similar manner to what's going on with the Panther design at that particular time. They make interleaved road wheels. These now actually are slightly different to what was done on the Tiger. They overlap, but they're not interleaved in between, so that it was easier to actually get access to some of the inner road wheels. They need to do that because, again, the weight of this vehicle is increasing all the time. You need that level of suspension to spread the weight over the wide tracks. They look at the track issue. Again, they're going to do what they've done with Tiger I. We have 80cm wide tracks for cross-country work. We have 66 wide centimetre tracks for transportation. So again, the side skirts would come off, smaller tracks put on if we're going to transport that vehicle by rail, which is the usual way of moving big vehicles like this behind the lines, and they're taken as close as they can to railheads behind the battlefields before offloaded, the transportation tracks taken off and the wider tracks put back on. Now Henschel's design wins. That they're both exhibited in October of '43. Henschel gets the contract for the hulls. The Porsche design, it's considered still, when he's trying to push his petrol-electric design at this stage of the war, just as earlier on, the German military are very, very nervous about the use of too much copper, which his electric engines, in essence, are going to be needing on the motors there. So the copper's not going to be available, and they're worried about that, so they go for the Henschel design. It goes into production in December of 1943. An order is put in for 1,500 Tiger IIs. A couple are built just before Christmas of 1943, 3 prototypes of the first vehicles to come out of the Henschel works. And we're very lucky here at the Tank Museum because we've actually got the second prototype vehicle, that's V2. So we've got V1, V2 and V3 are the vehicles that are actually put as test vehicles. V2 was used as a test vehicle at Hausenbeck throughout the entire rest of the war. It was captured by the British. It was still being used for trials by the Germans, and we're lucky enough to have that vehicle here. Now, in December of 1943, Krupp have been asked, could they redesign the turret that they've originally come up with this new gun on. Now, Krupp, first of all, they don't like the idea of fitting a rival gun to their turret. So the Rheinmetall 88mm L71 gun, Krupp decides to redesign it. So they have a go at it themselves. It looks very similar. Its performance is exactly the same as a Rheinmetall gun, and that's the gun they fit actually to their turrets. Again, it's very important now to emphasize, Krupp designs the German tank turrets. Porsche, Henschel are designing for this competition the hulls. Very different things to think about, because the turret that is put on that Porsche design initially is often called by people the Porsche turret. Porsche had nothing to do with the design of that turret, and that's something that we've, in our Tiger display here, we've been trying to get across to people. So we perhaps, because it's erroneous really to call it a Porsche turret, he has nothing whatsoever to do with it. Krupp has the design process, and it has the contracts for designing the turrets for the Tiger II program. The German military asked them to redesign the turret because they don't like the shape of it. And also its production costs and the time it takes to make it, it's very complex. Now, when we look at that early version of the turret, it's got a curved front to it. That was considered a potential shot trap. Rounds coming in could actually be glanced underneath that curved frontature. And the other issue as well is the side of the turret has a bulge in it where the commander's cupola is. And that again caused much more trouble in its production process. So Krupp redesigns a turret to make it simpler to manufacture and to eliminate that shot trap. And that we often, or here at the Tank Museum, we're calling that the production turret. They've already built over 50 of the earlier model turrets, so they decide to use those first. They were thinking it might have gone on the Porsche design. They changed one or two small elements of it. They thickened the roof armour, and then they're actually issued to the first 50 Tiger IIs that Henschel actually makes. So that early type of turret you can see in some of the shots where the Tiger is used for the very first time in July of 1944 in the battles in Normandy. The production turret, narrower front. The gun is slightly offset to allow the optic scope to be fitted. It starts with a binocular optic scope, but then it goes on to a monocular optic scope. The gun, we've mentioned, very powerful gun. Basically, the difference between the L71 88mm and the Tiger I gun, the L56 gun, is the cartridge case is doubled in size. There's double the amount of propellant, and that means a very similar size round comes out the end of that barrel with an enormous amount of force behind it. And its actual velocity, it goes about, speed-wise, you're looking at about 1,000 meters a second. And that gun can take out most known Allied tanks at a range up to 3 kilometers. So that's a very, very impressive advantage this tank's going to have, being able to, if you've got that sort of distance to fire from, that's going to give you a huge advantage before any of the Allied tanks can start getting in range. So very powerful gun. The armour that Henschel puts on it, you've got 15 centimetres of armour at the front there, angled at 50 degrees. That is very, very thick for World War II terms. Thinner armour on the sides and on the rear. Turret front mantlet, again very thick, and they built this enormous cast mantlet round the gun to help protect it. That narrower frontage also means you've got much less of a target area to hit from frontal strikes. And there's a general consensus that pretty much no Tiger II was penetrated on its front armour during the course of the war. Statistically, we think probably a discarding sabot round with a tungsten core from a 17-pounder could penetrate the front armour, but that engagement never took place. So that thick armour, that again was one of the things Hitler is influencing the design. He's insisting thicker armour on his tanks. Hitler's general view is every year he wants to see another generation of German tanks coming out that is going to leapfrog ahead and not allow the Russian or the Western Allies tanks to either catch up or overtake his own tanks in service. So very thick armour, very powerful gun. They still use the Maybach HL230 engine, the engine that's gone in the later Tiger 1s and into the Panther. Those engines there, when you're looking at it with the Tiger II, basically it's powering a vehicle that is 20 tons heavier. So again, that sense of the available power to get what becomes about a 68-ton vehicle around the battlefield, again, there's that general consensus that really this is not a powerful enough engine. Transmission, very again, similar to Tiger 1. The Tigers, as I say, they go into action of July 44 for the first time. They're issued to heavy tank battalion, Schwerpanzerabteilungs, normally about 45 tanks per battalion. The first engagement takes place in Normandy with the 503rd heavy tank battalion. This particular vehicle is serving with an SS battalion, heavy tank battalion, in Normandy. It's being used by the 501st. They are in retreat. We think this particular vehicle, the crew member drives it into a field near Beauvais. We're not too sure whether or not that's when the final drive was damaged by the crew member, who may be inexperienced in it. We know there's an account that it's claimed by a Sergeant Roberts of the 23rd Hussars. They're in the field. They fire at the vehicle. We can have a look at the battle damage in a moment. That vehicle, when it was firing at this vehicle, we think it was already abandoned by the Germans. And again, we're doing a little bit of research because we can't quite work out why the 23rd Hussars were in that part of Normandy at the time, according to their their war diaries. So these things, again, peeling away the layers about why certain vehicles get certain stories associated with them. Sometimes we just have to make sure that they're not confused with something else, so more research to be done there. The vehicle is photographed in the field where it's captured, so we have those photographs in the collection, and ultimately it's recovered and brought back to the UK as part of a number of German tanks that have been brought back for analysis. And this particular Tiger with its 104 on, it ends up at the teaching academy at Shrivenham, where it was there for many, many years. Sadly, various inner components, engine, etc., were stripped from it over the years. It's in good outside condition. It's got a reproduction Zimmerit coat on, not a bad looking paint job, but again, it's not quite as it was when it was in service. And about a decade or so ago, it came down here. It's now part of the Tank Museum's collection down here at Bovington. So an amazing beast. One thing we'd just like to round up on, we're here at Bovington. This is a teaching base, a teaching collection for the serving military. You can probably hear in the background, there's military vehicles driving around here all the time. Now the issue for us is we use this vehicle as an example to teach to the modern military, because this is an example of where technology has gone in a certain direction, the skill set needed not just to make this vehicle, but to also crew it are very high. Now that issue, modern militaries are going to face again. If you look at it, the stats show that this vehicle would take about 300,000 man-hours to make. 300,000, that is an awful lot of man-hours. It cost about 800,000 Reichsmarks to build. And again, that's about the price of 2 Tiger 1s, a hugely expensive vehicle. Now, to give a bit of a comparison, 800,000 Reichsmarks is about 330,000 US dollars in World War II. A Sherman tank cost about $32,000, $33,000 to make. So again, economics behind this. You could have made 9 Sherman tanks for the price of 1 King Tiger. And that, again, as I come back to the modern military, these are lessons that they're having to pick up on.